The first time I saw him, I was bleeding out on a stretcher, and he was the one deciding whether I lived or died. Not exactly the kind of meet-cute you'd brag about, unless you like your love stories drenched in blood and panic. The truth is, I shouldn't even be here. One drunk driver, one unlucky red light, and suddenly I was dangling between this world and the next. The air smelled like antiseptic and metal, a cruel reminder that my body was just another fragile machine waiting to be fixed or not. And then, in the blur of lights and chaos, his face appeared. He was all sharp lines and tired eyes. But behind that professional mask was something I couldn't name yet. His hands were steady, commanding, as if he'd done this 1,000 times. But his voice carried a warmth I clung to when everything else was slipping away. Stay with me. You hear me? Stay awake. I wanted to laugh. How do you stay awake when half your blood is probably on the floor? But I did. Because of him. Maybe it was the adrenaline. Maybe it was something more dangerous. The beeping monitors pulsed in rhythm with my heartbeat. Or maybe with the frantic pounding in my chest every time his eyes met mine. The absurd part, even while choking on pain, I noticed how the sleeve of his white coat was rolled up, revealing forearms I wanted to trace with my fingertips. Who thinks like that when they might die? Apparently, me. He pressed down on my wound, and I winced. Focus on me. He demanded. Don't drift off. And I did. I focused on him so hard that the world fell away. His deep brown eyes, his jaw clenched in stubborn determination. The faint shadow of exhaustion on his face, all of it burned into me. I thought, if this is the last person I'll ever see, maybe that's not the worst ending. But fate wasn't done with us. When I woke again, it wasn't in the ER but in a stark hospital room. The sheets stiff and scratchy. My chest felt like it had been ripped open and sewn back together. Which, judging by the ache, wasn't far from the truth. My head spun, but before I could piece together reality, the door opened and there he was. Still alive, he said, his lips twitching like he wanted to smile but wouldn't let himself. That's good news. You sound disappointed. I rasped. My voice cracked and weak. He raised an eyebrow. Don't push it. You nearly coded twice. I don't usually make jokes about patients who try to make my job harder. His sarcasm was dry, biting, but I caught the flicker in his eyes. He had stayed. He had watched. And in that gaze, I saw something I hadn't seen from family, friends, anyone for the first time in years. Someone looked at me like I mattered. I should have been terrified, should have been thinking about what came next. But instead, all I could do was stare at him. And God help me, I wanted more. Days passed, though I measured time by his visits. He wasn't supposed to linger. Our doctors didn't follow up like that. Not really, but he always found a reason. Checking vitals, adjusting my chart, warning me not to roll my eyes when he lectured me about rest. But then there were the small things, the way his hand brushed mine when he adjusted my fore, the way his voice softened when he asked how I was really doing, the way he never admitted that he cared, even though his presence screamed it. Why are you still here? I asked one night when the ward was quiet. The lights dimmed to a sleepy glow. He froze for a fraction of a second, then shrugged. Because you're my patient. Bullshit, I whispered, wincing at the pain in my ribs. Our doctors don't babysit. You saved me already. You don't owe me anything. His jaw tightened, and he looked away. For the first time, I saw a crack in his armor. Maybe I don't like leaving things unfinished. I wanted to reach for him, to break the distance. But the fore tethered me and the fear of rejection held me tighter. Still, the silence between us was heavy, thick with all the words we weren't saying. And yet, beneath the hospital's cold walls, something was alive. Something reckless, forbidden, beautiful. Because the truth was, I wasn't just healing from broken bones. I was falling for him. And I was terrified he might be falling too. I wish I could say things stayed simple. That love bloomed in neat little lines between 4 drips and soft conversations in the dark. But life isn't a romance novel. It's messy, raw, and sometimes it claws at you when you least expect it. The day I was cleared to leave, the hospital felt colder than ever. He came to sign off my discharge papers. His white coat buttoned, his stethoscope slung around his neck like armor. I searched his face for something regret, longing, a goodbye that meant more than just medical protocol. But he was stone. "You're stable," he said flatly. "Follow up with your primary physician. Avoid heavy lifting, and take the pain meds as prescribed." That was it. After all those nights, after all those stolen glances and the quiet electricity that sparked between us, I was just another file closed on his desk. "Is that all?" I asked, my throat dry. He hesitated. His fingers twitched, but he shoved the clipboard into my lap. "That's all." And then he left. Just like that. The emptiness swallowed me whole. The cab ride home blurred through the city's neon lights, my body aching more from the hollow in my chest than from my wounds. I told myself I was a fool. Doctors didn't fall in love with patients. He was just doing his job. And I was just a case number with a lucky ending. But weeks later, when I was strong enough to walk again, fate played its cruel card. I was at the grocery store, limping down an aisle, when I saw him. No white coat this time, just jeans, a sweatshirt, and a cart full of frozen dinners. His hair was messy, his eyes tired, and for a second, I realized how human he really was. Our eyes met. My heart slammed against my ribs, threatening to undo every fragile stitch that held me together. "You," I breathed. He froze. His grip on the cart tightened, like he'd been caught stealing something. "You shouldn't be here," he muttered. "It's a grocery store, not a war zone." I shot back. My voice wavered, but I pressed on. "Why did you leave like that? Why did you pretend none of it mattered?" For a moment, I thought he'd walk away again. But instead, he exhaled, shaky and vulnerable, and said, "Because it wasn't supposed to matter. Because I can't afford for it to matter." The confession cracked him open. And standing in the middle of a bland aisle filled with cereal boxes and canned soup, the truth spilled out. "I see people die every day," he whispered. "I can't let myself touch. It ruins me." But then his voice broke. "You almost slipped through my fingers. And I stayed. I shouldn't have. I crossed a line." I didn't care about lines. I cared about him. Without thinking, I stepped closer, ignoring the sharp sting in my ribs. "You didn't cross a line. You saved me. And not just my body." My voice cracked. "You saved me when you looked at me like I was worth something." His eyes shone with something I had only dreamed of. And then, in a moment so reckless it hurt, he reached out and brushed his hand against mine. Just a touch, light as air, but enough to ignite everything I'd buried since the ER. We stood there, silent but burning, until a stranger's cart rattled past and reality tugged us back. "Come with me," he said suddenly, voice trembling but certain. And I did. His apartment was small, cluttered with textbooks and coffee mugs. Nothing like the sterile order of the hospital. For once, he wasn't a doctor. He was just a man tired, flawed, breathtaking. We talked for hours. About everything and nothing. About the night he saved me. About the weight he carried. About the pieces of myself I thought no one wanted. Every word stitched us closer. And every silence dared us to admit what we both already knew. At some point, I reached for his hand. He didn't pull away this time. Instead, he pulled me in, his forehead resting against mine, his breath trembling as he whispered, "I've wanted this since the moment I told you to stay awake." And then his lips were on mine, soft at first, hesitant, like he was afraid he might break me. But when I kissed him back, truly kissed him, with everything I had, his restraint shattered. It wasn't just passion. It was survival, relief, the release of everything we'd held back. His hands traced the lines of my scars like they were sacred. And for the first time, I believed they were. Months passed. Recovery was brutal. But he was there through it all, sometimes as my doctor. Sometimes as the man who held me when the nightmares came back. We fought. We laughed. We learned to exist outside the walls of the hospital. One evening, we stood on his balcony. The city stretched out beneath us in a sea of lights. The night air was cool, but his arm around my waist kept me warm. "You know," I said, half teasing, half serious, "this wasn't exactly the love story I expected." He smirked, pressing a kiss to my temple. "Yeah. How'd you picture it?" "Definitely not with me bleeding out in your ER." He chuckled, but his voice softened. "If that's what it took to find you, then I'd do it all over again." And in that moment, I knew love wasn't about perfection. It was about surviving the chaos, finding each other in the wreckage, and choosing, again and again, to stay. Because he was my doctor, my savior, my reckless, stubborn, beautiful man. And I was his patient, his risk, his reminder that sometimes the heart saves what medicine can't. And together, we weren't just surviving anymore. We were living. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe to stay updated with the latest videos.